to have you join me on the news. The major story says anti-coup forces close to defeat in general, says Myanmar's NUG. Imran Khan, wife sentenced to 14 years in state gifts case. Indonesia's presidential candidate will music's influence. Johor Sultan assumes throne in Malaysia and Biden tackles unwanted second war, aims to contain it. Myanmar's anti-coup forces say they are edging closer to victory over the generals who seized power in a coup 3 years ago, energized by the successes of a key offensive that commenced at the end of October. NUG acting President Duwala Shila, speaking from a hidden location inside Myanmar at an online forum, said anti-coup forces had made stunning gains since the start of Operation 1027, which was launched late last year by an alliance of ethnic armed groups and resistance fighters. On Tuesday, Dua said after 3 years, the Spring Revolution is stronger than ever. With each passing day, we are edging closer to victory. The criminal military will never crush the will of the people. The NUG includes elected politicians who were ousted in the February 2021 coup and created the so-called People's Defense Force (PDF) of civilians after the military reacted with brutal force against peaceful protests against its power grab. Duwala Shila added that the military was facing a growing rate of desertion that was a deep humiliation for the junta, as anti-coup forces advanced in several areas of the country, taking control of military outposts and many towns. The generals are facing their biggest challenge since they overthrew the elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi, triggering a mass opposition movement. The military has claimed those fighting against them are terrorists, while reports of military abuses, losses and desertions are fake news designed to discredit the military. No less than 4,468 civilians have been killed since the coup, and closely 20,000 people are being held in detention on political grounds, according to the local monitoring group, the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners. The United Nations and human rights groups have accused the generals of serious human rights abuses, including crimes against humanity, in their crackdown on the opposition. Volker Turk, United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, said the country's human rights crisis was now in free fall, with the military routinely targeting civilians, medical facilities and schools. The world, he added, was paying insufficient attention to the situation. Amid all the crises around the world, it is important no one is forgotten, Turk said in a statement on Tuesday. The people of Myanmar have been suffering for too long. As the military has suffered setback after setback on the battlefield, they have lashed out, launching waves of indiscriminate aerial bombardments and artillery strikes. The whole villages have been burned to the ground, and attacks from the air, where the military has overwhelmingly superiority, have increased. Imran Khan, Pakistan's ex-prime minister, and his wife Bushra Bibi have been sentenced to 14 years in jail in a case linked to the illegal selling of state gifts. On Wednesday, an accountability court in Rawalpindi, which deals with corruption cases, also ruled that a couple will be ineligible to contest for public office for 10 years, while also slapping a fine of 757 million rupees, that's 2.7 million US dollars. The sentences came a day after Khan was given a 10-year prison term for revealing state secrets. It was unclear whether the sentences were to run consecutively or concurrently. In August, Khan was handed a 3-year prison sentence for selling gifts worth over 140 million rupees, that's 501,000 US dollars, he received when he was the prime minister from 2018 to April 2022. Though Khan secured bail, he remained in jail facing trial in other cases. The convictions against arguably Pakistan's most popular politician came about a week before the general elections of February 8th. Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf PTI has already been stripped off of its election symbol, with most of its candidates contesting as independents. PTI officials cite Zulfikar Bukhari said the sentences of Khan was yet another sad day in Pakistan's judicial history and questioned its legitimacy. Now on elections, fans peeled off their t-shirts and hoisted each other onto shoulders to get a better view of one of Indonesia's most famous rock bands on a blisteringly hot and thundery day in the city of Medan. Don't forget to spread the virus of peace across Indonesia. Slang's frontman and lead vocalist Akadi Wira Sudraji, better known as Kaka, screamed to the thousands of people who had come to Istana Maimun, the palace of Sultanate of Delhi, to rock out with their favorite band. The crowd rather known as Slankers, thundered their approval. But while the atmosphere was electric, Slang had not come to Medan on Indonesia's western island of Sumatra just to put on a good show. In Indonesia, there is a tradition of presidential and vice presidential candidates enlisting popular musicians in their campaigns in an effort to boost their electability. Political elites and political parties have actually been using artists gaining support or votes for a long time, said Hikmawan Indra Safula, who played guitar in the Indonesian ED band Alone at Last from 2002 to 2013 and is a lecturer in Indonesian studies at the University of New England. Whether it is effective or not is rather difficult to measure unless you want to wait until the election results come out. Even then, it is difficult to know for sure whether a candidate's victory was the result of votes from a supporting artist funds or not, because voting is secret. The Slang gig was organized in conjunction with a visit to the city by the presidential hopeful and former governor of Central Java, Ganjar Pranowo, and his running mate Mahfud MD, the former coordinating minister for politics, legal and security affairs. On politics, the last time a sultan from the state of Johor was on the throne of Malaysia in the late 1980s, the country was involved in a constitutional crunch as then Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad sought to clip the wings of the judiciary. Now, as the present Johor Sultan becomes king, Malaysia is facing a corruption crackdown which has trapped some of the most key political personalities of the Mahathir era. Speculation of a pardon for disgraced former Prime Minister Najib Razak and continued political maneuvering as part of realignment that started in 2018. It is very likely that at some point he will be called upon to adjudicate as to which side will have a more solid command of parliament, Malaysian political analyst O. Ehisun said, according to report. On Wednesday, Sultan Ibrahim Sultan Iskandar 65 was installed as the 17th Yang di-Pertuan Agong in a ceremony in Kuala Lumpur, which was broadcast live on state television. He was served for 5 years as part of Malaysia's unique system of rational monarchy, under which the country's 9 hereditary rulers take turns to be the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, or he who is made Lord. While the king is a constitutional monarch who acts as the head of state and commander of the armed forces, the turmoil that followed the historic election in 2018, when the once dominant United Malays National Organization UMNO was defeated for the first time since independence, has seen the monarch playing a more key role in the country's politics. At the time of that defeat, King Mohammed V from the northeastern state of Kelantan was on the throne and assist ensure a smooth transfer of power. When the then 49-year-old chose to resign, his successor King Sultan Abdullah Sultan Ahmed Shah from the central state of Pahang used the monarch's discretionary powers to name the country's prime ministers in 2020 and 2021. And after the election in 2022, when no single party won a parliamentary majority. He also agreed to then Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin's request for a state of emergency, which suspended parliament in 2021 as the COVID-19 pandemic raged. Malaysia is in a period of relative calm as Sultan Ibrahim is installed, with Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim at the head of a so-called unity government that includes his one-time rivals in UMNO as well as representatives from the Borneo states of Sabah and Sarawak. Some politicians still continue to jockey for power amidst profound cleavages in Malaysian society, while a corruption crackdown has trapped Dame Zainuddin, the once powerful right-hand man to Mahathir, Malaysia's longest-serving prime minister. There is nervousness too about disgraced ex-Prime Minister Najib Razak, who is closely 18 months into a 12-year sentence for corruption in connection to the multi-billion-dollar scandal at State Fund, 1 million decibel. Moving ahead, U.S. policy in the Middle East can no longer be described as an effort to halt the Israel-Gaza conflict from sparking a bigger regional war. That hope died weeks ago. The critical task now for President Joe Biden, as he considers reprisal over the deaths of 3 Americans in an attack by suspected Iranian proxy forces in Jordan on Sunday, is to thwart that region-wide war from tripping out of control. On Tuesday, the president said, according to reports, that he had made a decision on how to react to the attack and cautioned he held Tehran responsible in the sense that they are supplying the weapons to the people who did it, but expressing the balancing act he faces in seeking to punish the perpetrators, downgrade their capabilities and restore deterrence. He added, "What is unquestionable that the United States is already involved in a war in the wider Middle East less than 3 years after Biden formally decreed the end of a 2-decade combat mission in Iraq that exhausted the U.S. and caused deep political trauma. It is also clear that the Biden administration's effort to stop an escalation is not working. U.S. strikes Iranian-backed militia throughout the region, which followed over 160 attacks on American military facilities, did not deter Sunday's drone strike, and missile and drone attacks against commercial shipping in the Red Sea haven't stopped despite rolling U.S. airstrikes against their launch sites and infrastructure in Yemen. So Biden has now arrived at the undesirable position that presidents often face when all potential options before them are bad, and the very task of seeking to slow a deepening crisis may end up exacerbating it. The set of violence that has begun outside Gaza, where tens of thousands of Palestinians have been killed after 1,200 Israelis died in Hamas terror attacks on October 7th, underscores the grave potential of the war. Hezbollah, a pro-Iranian group based in Lebanon, has been waging a low-grade war against Israel. On Monday alone, it has said it had launched 13 attacks on aims in northern Israel. The Israel Defense Forces said that evening it carried out airstrikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. On more stories, China removes rocket scientists from key political body. China has ousted a leading rocket scientist from its top political advisory body, the newest sign of a broadening purge in the Chinese military, missile force and aerospace contractors. At a meeting in Beijing on Monday, the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference CPPCC removed Wang Xiaozhong just a year after he was appointed a member, reports said. Wang, 54, until recently led the China Academy of Launch Vehicle Technology (CALT), a prestigious state-run institute known as the birthplace of China's aerospace industry. According to its official site, the CALT touts itself as the nation's oldest and biggest base for the development, testing and production of missile weapons and launch vehicles. Wang spent his closely 3-decade-long career designing rockets at CALT, a subsidiary of the major contractor of the Chinese space program, the state-owned China Aerospace Science and Technology Corporation. Wang's dismissal from the elite political body is the newest shake-up in China's military-industrial complex. In December, 3 aerospace executives, including the chairman of China Aerospace Science and Technology Corporation, were stripped of their roles in the CPPCC. 2 days later, 9 high-ranking People's Liberation Army officers were ejected from the country's top legislature. 5 of them are connected to the rocket force, an elite branch built by the Chinese leader Xi Jinping to oversee the development of the nation's nuclear and ballistic missiles. No reason was given for the expulsions in December, but experts who have long studied China's military point to a corruption purge as the likely cause, possibly over the procurement and development of equipment for the rocket force, a highly secretive and lucrative field flushed with billions of dollars of funding that makes a fertile ground for graft. The rocket force abruptly replaced its two leaders, the commander and the political commissar, with no explanation in July. Wang, who became a CPPCC member only in January last year, is known for leading the development of Long March 7, a new generation rocket designed to launch cargo spacecraft to China's Tiangong space station. Third U.S. F-16 crash off South Korea in a year. On Wednesday, a United States Air Force F-16 fighter jet crashed after suffering an anti-flight emergency off the coast of South Korea in the third crash of one of U.S.'s military Korea's base warplanes in less than a year. According to a statement from Kunsan Air Base, the incident occurred during a training mission over the waters west of the Korean peninsula around 8:41 a.m. local time, about 110 miles, 180 kilometers south of the capital, Seoul. The pilot, assigned to the 8th Fighter Wing, ejected safely and was improved about 15 minutes after the crash, the Air Force statement said. The pilot was conscious and taken to a medical facility for assessment, according to the base. Colonel Matthew Gadke, 8th Fighter Wing Commander, in a statement said, "Now we will shift our focus to search and recovery of the aircraft. The cause of the in-flight emergency is still under investigation." Wednesday's crash was the third of a South Korea-based F-16 in less than a year, though there are no signs they are connected. An F-16 from Kunsan crashed off the west coast of the peninsula during training in December. The pilot ejected and was rescued by South Korean Maritime Forces, the 8th Fighter Wing said at the time, adding that no more information on that crash will be released until an investigation was concluded. In May 2023, an F-16 crashed into an agricultural area near Osan Air Base, south of Seoul, during training. The pilot of that aircraft also ejected safely, and the case was referred to investigation. The F-16 is the workhorse of U.S. Air Force fighters, with 738 of the single-engine jets in the fleet, according to the Flight Global's World Air Forces 2024. The Air Force says F-16s make up about half of its fighter jet inventory. According to statistics from the Air Force Safety Center, last provided after fiscal year 2021, the service loses between 3 and 4 units of the aircraft each year to mishaps worldwide. Now in Africa, Zimbabwe opposition figure Job Sikala released. A court on Tuesday handed lawyer a 2-year suspended sentence for inciting public violence. The court ruled to free the activist, who has spent closely 600 days in pre-trial detention. The politician was detained in June 2022 following the killing of an opposition activist, Mo Blessing Ali. The former MP was accused of encouraging supporters to violently respond to the murder of Ali. Sikala was convicted of inciting public violence on January 24th in Harare, allegations he had denied. On Tuesday, his lawyer said he will appeal against the conviction. 51-year-old Sikala was kept in the Chikurubi maximum prison in Harare, which houses Zimbabwe's most dangerous criminals. Former opposition parliament member Godfrey Sithole, with whom Sikala was convicted and charged, was handed the same sentence. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll bring you more stories. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Stories from Nigeria now on insecurity. Abductors demand 100 million naira for Ekiti students and teachers. Abductors of 5 pupils of Apostolic Faith groups of schools in Muri, Ekiti, and 4 staff have asked for 100 million naira ransom for the release of the 9 victims who were taken away on Monday. Boje Olanariti, the principal of the secondary section of the school, confirmed the ransom demand, according to reports on Tuesday. The abduction epidemic has continued to defy the efforts of the security agencies, as cases of kidnappings were being recorded in various parts of the country daily. Gunmen killed 2 Ekiti monarchs, the Onimojo of Imojo, Oba Olatunde Olushola, and the Eleshun of Eshun Ekiti. Oba Babatunde Ogunsakin, while the Alara of Ara Ekiti, Oba Adebayo Fatoba, narrowly escaped on Monday. The traditional rulers were returning from a function in Kogi State when their vehicles ran into the suspected kidnappers who were operating on the highway between Ipao and Oke-Oko in the Ikole local government area of Ekiti State. The abduction of the school children and four staff members happened when the school bus conveying 25 pupils home after school hours was intercepted by the government in the Umweri community in Ekiti State. Shedding light on how the incident happened, Olani Reti explained that the abduction occurred about a 5-minute drive from the school. Meanwhile, the Aremo of Umweru Kingdom, Chief Clement Akinola, has appealed to the state government to help in the release of their children. Akinola, who in the company of the Emure local government chairman and state government officials visited the families of the kidnapped persons at Ekporo, Ekiti. The chief called for the creation of military posts on the many borders between the Emure community and Ondo State to tame kidnappings and the activities of government in the area. And finally, on the news, Senate holds plenary for by-election campaign. The Senate has halted sitting for 2 days to let members to participate in the campaign for the 3rd February by-elections in some states. Godswill Akpabio, the Senate President, announced the suspension of the sitting during Tuesday's plenary. The Senate standing rule as amended prescribed Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays as the official days for holding the plenary sessions. Members of the upper chamber resumed yesterday after about 30 days of Christmas holiday. Upon the beginning of the plenary, which started around 11:25 a.m., the Senate President welcomed his colleagues and urged them to be committed to delivering good governance. After the closed-door session, the Senate President announced suspension of the plenary until Tuesday, 6 February, to enable the senators to take part in the campaign for by-election in their respective constituents. The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) had earlier said it will conduct 9 by-elections and 35 reruns on 3rd February. The by-elections mounted from the resignations or deaths of elected lawmakers and subsequent vacancies declared by the presiding officers of the National Assembly and the State Houses of Assembly. The conduct of reruns in 35 constituencies is a result of the outcome of various election petition tribunals. There are 2 vacancies in the Senate, 4 in the House of Representatives, and several vacancies in state constituencies in 9 states, according to INEC. Last December, Akpabio declared the seats of Ubunyi South and Yobe East Senatorial districts vacant following the appointment of David Umahi and Ibrahim Gaidam as Ministers of Works and Police Affairs, respectively. In the House of Representatives, INEC said there are vacancies for Okoko Northeast Akoko Northwest Federal Constituency in Ondo State, Jalingo Yoro Suzing Federal Constituency of Taraba State, Surulere 1 Federal Constituency, Lagos State, and Yauri Shanga Ngaski Federal Constituency in Kebbi State. A recap of major stories says anti-coup forces close to defeating general since Myanmar's NUG. Imran Khan, wife sentenced to 14 years in state gifts case. Indonesia's presidential candidate wield music's influence. Johor Sultan assumes throne in Malaysia, and Biden tackles unwanted second war, aims to contain it. And that's all in the news. Thanks for watching. From all the crew, have a blessed day.